Hey, can I see that?
Yeah, of course. Here you go.
Enjoy life forever. Now, how are you going to do that?
Well, that's a very good question, actually. Well, God
No, no,
promises
no. No, not God, you. What are you doing?
me. Well, I try to help others.
Try? Man, all you do is stand next to your little cart while the rest of us stand up for your rights, bro.
Well, I'm actually neutral.
Neutral? Ain't no neutral. You're just a coward.
Take your trash.
How you doing, guys? Has anybody ever pointed out something to somebody that they actually did not want to hear? And at first they would deny it. Then as you started backing it up with facts, they would get angry, and in some cases they get quite hostile. You knew you were right, and deep down they knew you were right. And the more you brought it up, the angrier they would get. This is a fact behind Jehovah's Witnesses, especially with the Hall crashes and the car crashes in the past. Now, they love to believe they were being persecuted for their faith, but in all honesty, no, they weren't being persecuted. Facts were being poured out to them, and they were in a state of denial about it, so they would get quite angry. After the so-called pandemic, and the meetings were now on Zoom, they were no longer out in service. That seemed to be a thing of the past, because now we were in the last of the last days. So Jehovah's Witnesses probably believed they would never be out in service again. They would never have to worry about the car crashes ever again. This changed about 4 months ago, when they found out they would be returning to their kingdom halls. Then shortly thereafter, they found out they would be out witnessing again. They would now be out manning their carts. How many of them dreaded the possibility of car crashes after that? I'm sure they did. Excuse me, guys, I'm recovering from pneumonia. Well, Watchtower also knew this. So what did they do? They had to feed their persecution complex. And they did it in this year's regional convention, Pursue Peace. I had watched a portion of it, and I zeroed in on this one segment. Now, for those of you who saw the video, it opened up with this dude named Gabe was at the cot, and he was being harassed by somebody from the general public through his magazine on the ground. This, they'd like to believe that they were being persecuted for, but it was very unrealistic. See, it's not the general population that Watchtower is concerned about. See, the general population doesn't care that Jehovah's Witnesses are out manning their cots. At least they're not knocking on their doors, which is what really pissed most people off. See, Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned about the former members who will be approaching those cots. Now, whether it happens like it did in years gone by or not, I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But Watchtower was not going to take any chances. So they decided to make them feel picked on again. You're being persecuted for your faith. And in all honesty, no, they're not, because we were all Jehovah's Witnesses at one time. The one and only time that I manned a cot, I was already awake. And I'm wondering how I would have reacted had that cot been approached. Because the car crashes at that time were not happening. But I'm wondering how I would have reacted had somebody crashed that cot while I was there. I couldn't deny anything they said, nor would I have at that point in time. But most Jehovah's Witnesses feel the need to defend. Remember when they would sit there with a smile? And as time would go on, that smile would vanish, and they would get angrier and angrier and angrier. But there's something else I wanted to point out. One thing that's always angered me was people who feel picked on. Now, this is a very childlike behavior. Now, as kids, we all felt picked on at one time or another. But there were times when people would grow up and they continue to feel picked on. This behavior I can't stand. We have a YouTuber who's now floundering in obscurity after having like 7 channels. People got tired of hearing him cry. He was picked on. He hated everybody else. Everybody was wrong. He was right. Well, now he's sitting there with a couple of videos, no subscribers, no views. People got fed up with it because he's a grown man who feels picked on. Grow up, get over it. But this is something that Watchtower feeds into Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the young lady in the video, I believe her name was Olivia. Let's take a quick look at that.
Olivia? What's wrong?
Hey everyone, Brooke here, and Amanda. Guess who just walked in? Olivia. And there's Jake. Today's poll, would she ever?
No, she would never. She's an angel.
I think it's all an act. You know she's wild. Oh, she saw it. She saw it.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. You know, it reminds me of a situation Paul was in. I think it was Acts chapter 16 and verse 23. After they had inflicted many blows on them, they threw them into prison.
I actually found this segment to be a little bit more realistic than the first, although not for the reason Watchtower claims. Now, this is a problem with young people, especially if they don't go along with the crowd or they don't quite fit in. And it's not because they're Jehovah's Witnesses in general, but because they're different. They don't fit in because they don't act like everybody else. And this is something that a lot of young people go through. Now, I went through it when I was younger, and it bothered me. Today, not so much at all. See, when you're young, let's face it, you want to be accepted by your peers. As you grow up, you find out that most of your peers you really want nothing to do with. So what do? They trash talk you. Now, the example her mother gave about Paul, I believe it was can't remember what chapter it was very unrealistic. First of all, this girl was not physically beaten. She was not thrown into jail, but Jehovah's Witnesses will have her believe that she was persecuted for her faith. No, she was trash talked because she was different. She may have been different whether she was a JW or not, but again, they're feeding the persecution complex. The picked on thing. This is further damage control from the org. See, the org knows they're up against the ropes. They're in trouble because more and more people are waking up. And the thing is, Watchtower's not putting much thought into their material of late because the more damage control they do, the more witnesses that are waking up. And I think this year is going to do it, especially with Stephen's Let talk about babies. You're going to tell me that a lot of people are not going to wake up for that? Unfortunately, with a talk like that, they've also caused some major problems worldwide, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot more in general. That was my thought about this year's convention, and it kind of wanted me to get me go on to another subject as far as resentfulness. See, many of Jehovah's Witnesses resent the former members. Why? Because our lives are not destroyed. We did not go crawling back. See, this is what they want to see. They want to see you out of the organization, destitute and hurting. What kind of people wish ill on someone else just because they no longer share their beliefs? That would be Jehovah's Witnesses or any high control group. They want to see you fail. And when you don't fail, they get very resentful. This is something I kind of want to cover in my next video. Hopefully I'll be out there sometime during the week. But I want to cover people that resent you. Anyways, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and it's good to see you again. I'll be talking to you soon.